All right, let's go. So, welcome to another episode of eCommerce Reality, where we talk all things e-commerce, Shopify stores, Meta ads, Google ads, CRO, email, whatever is necessary to grow an e-com store. So, in this one, we'll actually talk about something different. Not about the e-com side, but actually the agency side, right? Because, as we know, in the past few years, because of people like Himangazi or other YouTubers, influencers, many people have jumped on this business opportunity, right? Because this is what most people do when they sell info, they sell a business opportunity, right? And agency is definitely a great business opportunity, vehicle, however you want to call it, because you have a low risk. You don't really lose anything. You have to make a very low investment, if even that. And then you can cash flow, right? So it's very low risk, high reward compared to, let's say, ecom, where it's actually, let's say, medium risk. You still need to put some money and higher reward, but it is still medium to higher risk, let's say, right? Because it does become actually even more complicated at times. So in the last video, we were chatting about the 7-figure ecom brands, right? So anything between 1 to 10 million. Now we're talking about agencies, and about agencies, I would say, let's even talk about like 100K agencies, because I mean, everyone talks about 1 million and so on. But the fact is that when you make 100K as an agency, probably as a business owner, you might take home, who knows, like 70 or the entire amount, so you take straight up 100K. However, if you are a 1 million agency, right? So you're making per month, let's say around 88, I think that's the math there, in 90K. That means that you probably have at least, let's say, minimum 9 clients, right? That's the minimum, by the way. And then you can't really service all of them alone, right? So you probably need a team that's at least 3-4, right? Then depending how much you pay them, you probably are making, let's say, maybe 50% margins at best. But even that is pretty hard to believe, because in most agencies, to be fair here, if they are at 1 million, they probably have 10, 20 clients. Then you have different pods already, so probably even the margins are lower, closer to maybe 40%, right? So that's maybe 400K. And then if you live in the US, you pay, I don't know, maybe 33% tax overall, more or less, depending on how you structure your company and so on. So eventually how much you would make, maybe 280K or something like that, right? And that's like if you have a $1 million agency. However, if you have a 100K agency, then you definitely have probably less clients. You can spend more time on them, and you probably offer a better service, to be honest, right? So this is where it really depends where you want to be, because sometimes you make more money, revenue, but you don't make more profit, or at least profit per, let's say, time invested or energy invested, right? And there is a diminishing return. There was actually something that someone from my team just sent me on Slack last night, Friday, and it was one of those memes where it mentions a guy from the US making 400K a year says that eventually, after maybe, I don't know, 10 plus years of working, he can retire and go to the Mediterranean Sea and have, I don't know, like a good life, sitting in the sun, drinking whatever. And then you have another guy from France who's making like 23K a year, and that's the life that he's living, right? So what's the takeaway here? Basically that it's not really just about money, even though honestly 23K a year, yeah, you won't be really able to travel, right? So that was just an extreme example, right? But coming back to what we're looking at here, if an ecom brand, for example, makes 1 million, right? They make way less in terms of profit. They make 10%, let's say. some maybe even 5% or less, right? We were talking about this in the other video as well. You could have a look at it if you want some context. But if you make even 5 million a year as an ecom brand, basically the EBITDA or close to net profit would be probably 500k, right? And then if you include tax, probably anywhere between 400, maybe 400 or 350k to 400k, right? So using very big numbers here, but the fact is that sometimes you have to put all of that effort and you do get diminishing returns, right? Like you have to work 4 times harder, but you don't get 4 times like the profit, right? So that's why I also want to bring this up, because usually some of the best agencies, even like mine, let's say, are a boutique agency and they only handle a few select clients. Because if you start growing too much, you'll just have to manage people. And those people will be the ones that decide to some extent like what's your reputation, what's the actual result that you are able to offer to your clients, right? So this is on the agency side, and this is where this is definitely helpful both for agencies and for ecom brand owners or operators, because for example, someone was just asking in one of the previous videos how to get my first client, right, in the agency space. So once you actually get your first client, then you have proof, then you have confidence, but usually that's something that's really hard in the beginning. Getting your first client might take sometimes, right? It could take 5 days, but sometimes it takes 3, 6, 9, 12 months. But after that, the next 12 months, you might get 4 more, right? And then you have 5, then you have a 100K, 200K, whatever it might be per year business. So it is about going through steps, just like in ecom. First, you need to get your product out there to have some customers. Sometimes it's actually easier in the beginning to get your first few customers because Meta is able to find those people. But then you have to speak with people differently, different angles, different copy, different landing pages sometimes, of course, different creatives. So quite a few things, but as you can see, we're switching from ecom to agency, but let's keep this more on the agency side. If I guess you guys like it, I could talk more about the agency side, because I mean, I do own an agency, and there are definitely, let's say, benefits, but also drawbacks. For example, there is a reason why I would say having an agency is much better than being a freelancer, because the agency, the boutique model, basically has the best of both worlds. It's also an agency, so it does portray you as being, let's say, more professional and so on, which is true to some extent, because you did take the time to build an agency, to also have a team probably. While if you're a freelancer, you're kind of alone, right? So that person would need to just rely on you. And I mean, doesn't mean that you can be really amazing at what you do, because I mean, probably even in my agency, right, I'm probably the best, let's say, or one of the best at overall, let's say, skills, right? Not at specific skills, not at creative, not at appointment setting, probably at sales, probably at media buying and strategy, but definitely a few things that I'm not good at. So that's why there are other people on the team who can do it better. So the service can be better and the results for the ecom brands can be better. However, coming back to the agency side, on the agency side, because of that question with how to get the first client, I mean, there are 3 components, I would say, to simplify. So it's the lead generation part, it's the sales part, and the fulfillment part. And honestly, the one that I kind of enjoy the most and I value the most is fulfillment, because that's where you actually need to offer the service, right? It's just like going to the dentist or having a surgery, right? You care about the actual surgery. You don't care, you as a consumer, as a customer, as a client, you don't really care about how you got there and so on, right? That's their part. But then the fulfillment, the actual service, that's the actual thing that you'll feel. So coming back, lead generation, that means that you start searching everywhere for lists, for calls, because we can actually put into lead generation the fact that you have to search for leads and then also contact them, right? And then we can think of the sales part, which there is an overlap there, because on the sales part, you do the sales also when you're doing an appointment setting, which is part of the lead generation. But then also when you get with someone on a call, that's the closing aspect to it, right? Discovery, closing, it's a mix, because you do want to find out more things about that ecom brand. I mean, their pain points, basically, right? And then sell them. And here's where you have to actually do two things on the selling or closing end. First, make sure that they are a good fit, because if they are not, and sometimes they are not, might not be better to push. And even I've done that sometimes, even though, let's say, the retainer wasn't bad or anything, but I just wasn't as confident. I didn't feel like I would be able to offer the best service, right? And what does feeling actually mean? Well, all the calculations in my mind that because of this AOV, because of this CPC, because of all of those numbers, probably it wouldn't be the easiest collab. Also because of the time zone sometimes if they are in Australia. So that's the lead generation part. And the sales part, where, as I was saying, there are two components. First, discovery and making sure they are a good fit, and then also closing, because closing and asking for the sale, that's also a thing, because not everyone actually does it, especially face-to-face on a call, because you might forget, you might not use the right words. You just present your offer, right? Which is not enough in most cases. Presenting your offer is just one part. Then you have to see, all right, you don't want it? Okay, why? Let's try to see why. Is it because maybe this feels like a high cost? Because you might have just told me earlier, you can actually bring up things that were previously in the call. You can actually ask. And this is where the discovery part is really important. If you know that they have the money, then the question at the end is this really a question of being too high of a retainer, or is this something else? So you're trying actually to find what's the actual reason, because usually it's not money. That's why someone will pay at home $1 or 20 cents for a coffee, and how much in, let's say, in a fancy restaurant, sometimes you pay 10, right? I just paid in Budapest, something like that. That's not 10 times, it's 100 times more, right? Same thing. But because of the location and everything in there, right, we agreed, me as a consumer, them as the ones who sell, that we need to pay 10 euro or $10 instead of 0.1 like at home, right? So this is where you can see a huge difference, 100x, and that's not a joke, right? It's basically just what it is. That's why one house can cost, let's say 50K and another 5 million. Again, 100x because of different factors. And we can even go over those factors if we want to, but we could chat about it for an hour. So lead generation, sales, and then fulfillment. On the fulfillment side, this is where I do like it the most, because everything matters to some extent. It's the communication, it's the actual fulfillment, it's how many changes you make in the ad account, how many touch points do you have, how many messages do you send on Slack, how many conversations do you have, what kind of conversation, what's the quality of those conversations that you have weekly, bi-weekly with the brand owner or whoever you're talking with from that brand, right? So as you can see, so many different components. And one thing that I was actually thinking of at one point is that intelligence to some extent is probably, in my opinion, just the amount of dots that you can connect in your mind, how much context you have about everything, right? Because, for example, if you're able to be mega super aware of everything, right, of all the tiny little things in your life, right, and you could think, all right, because I do this, then this happens, and because of that happens, right? So second order, third order effects. Then of course you would have a more predictable life. And honestly, that's what I've enjoyed doing less so nowadays, because now basically I just need to have like simpler conversations sometimes with let's say the brands, the clients, my team, right? But especially when you grow, you actually need to go deeper, right, to understand all the things, right? For example, right now I know I'm in the sun. It's not really good. I'm not even seeing myself right there in the camera, so I'm not sure how long this video is, but I know I'm getting slightly uncomfortable here with the weather. And if I would do this for 5 or 10 more minutes, except the fact that I would probably get burned, I would start just yapping about things that are not important, right? Like I'm starting to do right now, because as you can see, there is a point of diminishing returns, right? You need to know when to stop doing something and then go on to the next thing. So let's look real quick at how many minutes. All right, 15 minutes. That was more than enough, but I guess this might have been the last video from Sardinia. So trying to wrap it up, we are talking about the agency world, and basically, if you want to create an agency, I would say the ones in the 100 to 200K range are probably, at least in the US, let's say, right? If you're in Europe, maybe 50 to 100K would be similar in terms of actual lifestyle value amount, how many people you need, and so on, right? Just because of the parity. But yeah, we're talking about agency because it is easier for me actually to talk about that to some extent. I've studied it. I've grown a couple actually as either a partner or founder. So some experience there, but not to make this too long, we'll wrap it up just by saying that whichever part you're on, let's say eCom brand or an agency, I would say the most important thing is just trying to do your best work all the time, and that does show. That's why there's always like a top 1% or 0.1%, because if you just do things consistently and seriously, eventually you'll get more than enough business, right? Even myself right now, I do think that I have too much inbound right now, compared to how much effort I put. But the fact is that I put so much effort, let's say like 1 year ago, 2 years ago, into growing my brand and lead generation, all of that, right? And now those seeds, that time invested, does seem to show up in calls, which I don't have to pay for, right? No paid ads or email marketing or cold email, anything like that. So that's it for this one, because it's been way longer than I expected, but hope you enjoyed it. You maybe listen to it in the background, just like I do sometimes with YouTube videos, if you got here. And really appreciate you if you got here. Not everyone does. I mean, it's been a longer video at 2 times speed, maybe 8 or 9 minutes, but that's it for this one. So if you enjoyed it, you can leave a like. If you have anything to comment, you can leave the comment down below. I'll probably respond to it. Still able to check all of the comments because there are so few, which is good. I do prefer that. And with that being said, wishing you the best and see you in the next one. Peace out.